Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. You're at the spot, the place, where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. You're back at your favorite spot, the best podcast on the planet. Right here. This is the place where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Returning to the show is Diane Gallo. Now, before we get started, I always say this. This woman was such an influence in my life when I was in corporate America. She is a HR professional phenom, caring, compassionate, but also one that actually encourages you to buy in to the organization, work with the organization. And we have remained friends after I got terminated.
What's it been, 20 years or so?
It was 20 years ago, but you know what? There's no shame in being terminated. You know, things happen. But when you can still build those bridges and alliances, that is what's more important than any corporate structure. So she's back with us here on the show today, but with a very, very interesting diagnosis that she received, something that I had never heard of. And she talked to me about it a couple times, and I'm like, I'm still confused. It's called aphantasia.
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 Aphantasia. Like Fantasia the movie.
Aphantasia.
Got it.
And it is the inability, let me see if I can read this. People that suffer with an inability to visually remember or retain images, like spelling words or pictures of people, or maybe if you're going to draw something, you cannot retain a visual image. And as I looked at it, this condition can also affect people audibly. So I'm going to let her do the deep dive. I'm going to ask the questions, because this is something, number one, how in the world was she diagnosed? Number two is, how many people suffer from this and don't know it? And number three, living with it. Is it a challenge? Is it something that you can adjust to? So let's welcome her to the show. How are you, Diane?
I am well. How are you?
I'm good.
Nice.
So tell my brains a little bit about aphantasia.
Okay. It's something that in your mind, most people can sit here and visualize something. Think of your child, your husband, your dog, whatever. You get an image in your brain, right? Where you will see that person. I don't get that image. Okay. I have an inability to voluntarily have a mental image become something I look at. I get a sense of a person if I think of them. I get a sense of my dog if I think of him, but I can't see him. I would be the world's worst person to do the sketch with the witness, with the eyewitness person at the police station, because I don't have that visual recall that people have. I never really realized other people did until I started reading about it. Evidently, it was first formally described in 2015. I think the original research was in England, but there's also been research in Australia, Germany, and the US. And you can have kind of on a spectrum of no imagery whatsoever to fuzzy images to way out of the park, magnified images. But aphantasia is not having mental images. So I can't see you.
So Diane, I've known you for years. We've done things, we've talked, you've traveled, she's a dog lover. But what rang your bell? What caused you to even look into this? What happened?
I read a short article in some magazine on an airplane a long time ago, and it described aphantasia. And I said, what? That's not normal? Because all my life, I've thought other people have the same imagery or lack of imagery than I do. I used to be in a meditation class where they were telling you about laying on the beach and visualizing the green the pretty ocean and the green palm trees and the breeze in your hair. And then people would say, oh, yes, I see it. I see it. I think they were just trying to, get angry with the teacher because I could never see anything in my head. I just thought that was a natural phenomena. I did not realize until probably 10, maybe less than 10 years ago, that it's actually a condition that people have when they can't have visual memories. The thing that's interesting about it is if I had known earlier in life, I could have figured out different ways to assimilate information. And I think it's something people should learn about and kind of check their kids on. Because if you have a child that can't visualize, they're not going to be very good at memorizing. They're not going to be very good at spatial imagery. Like you tell them how to do something, you show them how to do something, and they can't re-see it in their mind and remember it, they're not going to be able to do it. So they're the ones that are going to put the cap on backwards, turn the screwdriver the wrong way, because the way they have to remember it, they're not getting a mental image of it. And I think it would have been an interesting thing to know younger, simply because
would this fall under the category of neurodivergence?
It is actually not yet. It's actually not enough of the population they think has it. A lot of autistic people have it, but it's not predominantly only there. But they only believe that 2 to 5% of the whole population has it.
Wow.
And most people self-report it when they figure it out, but there's probably a lot more people that just don't know that they're seeing a different thing or nothing in their head, and other people are actually seeing things.
Well, this can kind of be heartbreaking too when you go and try to reflect on, memories from the past, maybe past vacations, family members that have passed on,
Yep.
Trying to retain information when taking a test.
Mm-hmm.
So the struggle is real.
Yeah, it is, but it's interesting because not knowing it, when I was in college, I used to stay up all night with my roommate and memorize things. I thought I memorized things, but I didn't have the visual recall. What I found after later in life is that if I write something down and if I hear it, I am more likely to be able to recover it if I need it. Whereas if I just look at it, read a paragraph and try to remember what it says, I'm not gonna get it. I may get the gist of it. The good stuff is I will never get a song like Baby Shark stuck in my head, because I don't replay things. I have it from an auditory capacity as well. I do miss being able to think about things that have happened in my past and be able to relive them. There's something about being able to think about good times and reliving them that's really great. But on the flip side of that is any major trauma that you have, right, that could be horrible to see, you don't see it in your head. So the PTSD that a lot of people suffer because they're reliving battles or abuse or whatever, I wouldn't have that because I wouldn't be able to see that in my head. I would have the feelings that go with it, the feelings of fear, the feelings of, being abused, whatever, but I would not have the visuals, and that would not be available to me to conjure up in my mind if I was thinking about it.
Now, auditory, you said you experienced that as well? So
yeah, it's multisensory for many people. So
really, that's what I was looking at, because when I was Googling it, I thought some people had the visual impairment and other people had auditory. So is that like remembering words to a song, maybe?
I'll remember it when it starts playing and I know I've heard it before. I'm not going to tell you I can't sing Happy Birthday, but I would, when the song comes on the radio, I don't recognize it immediately by the first note or the first few things, because it's not programmed in my head somewhere in an auditory manner. So it's different. The things you hear all the time, it's just routine almost. But the things like I mentioned, Baby Shark, all the things that they call earworms, I don't have earworms because things just don't get stuck in there. So,
well, you have overcome and adapted, because I was dyslexic. I'm still dyslexic, you never grow out of that. Yeah. And so it was hard for my parents to identify what it was. And they really didn't, they didn't know it was hooked on phonics and different things. But still, I transpose letters sometimes,
Hmm.
still sounding out words like uh, aphantasia, you know, different things like that are still a struggle. So
Right.
your parents had no way of knowing, you had no way of
No,
knowing
no.
because you thought this was the norm.
And I don't know. I don't, my parents are deceased. I don't know. They may have had it too, or had something of it too. I don't know if it's inherited. I just know that I found out about it very late in life. And as I look back, if I was a parent, I would want to test my children to see where they were on the scale. And there's a test out there. I'll give you the name of it later. And you can go online and take it. And basically, it gives you an image to close your eyes and think about, and then it asks you at what level do you see the image? Not at all, just a little bit fuzzy, starting to get clear, etc. So that kind of thing from what I have taken to understand after I've done a lot of research is if I had a child that was in school and was in a place where they were told to memorize constantly based on visual memory, then they're at a deficit. And much like people didn't realize that about dyslexics, I don't think they realize that about aphants either. It's not common, and I think it's people only find out about it when they read something or hear somebody else tells them about a visual memory that they have, and they just don't get why they can't get it and start doing a little homework. But I find it really interesting. It's got good and bad, um, you know, things about it. Like it's not nice to not be able to remember my parents' faces because they've been gone for 7 years, and I can't
And
conjure that up.
let's send them some flowers because I knew both of them and they were
Yeah, they
super
were sweet.
uber great people. Yes, they
Yeah,
were. Yes, they were.
yeah.
They still are. They're here surrounding you and
Oh,
protecting.
I know, but I still can't see them. I couldn't see them in my head. Can't see them now, so it's all the
Well,
same.
now, so how did you get clinically diagnosed? And is this considered as a disability or you self-diagnose
Nope. It's
yourself?
considered a condition, not an ailment or a disability.
Okay.
And it's a condition that sometimes goes with autism and sometimes goes with other things, but it is just a condition of that you have. So it's not a diagnosed like medical diagnosis. It's more like somebody being colorblind. Okay, that's not really a medical diagnosis. It's
Right.
basically just how they see.
So it doesn't fall within the um, area of Alzheimer's or dementia or anything like that. And it doesn't
Or
relate.
autism or anything like that. Now, I don't know if that means it won't eventually. It was formally described for the first time in 2015. So when you think about medicine and scientific study, there's not a lot of research on it yet. I actually am a member of the society, I guess they call it, and I have taken a bunch of quizzes online and research projects for them, as do many people that have been diagnosed, self-diagnosed, usually about having this. Sometimes someone else will point it out to you when they kind of figure out you're not connecting to something.
Mm,
But in general, people kind of stumble upon it for themselves. And there's probably thousands of people that don't realize what they don't know or
right.
don't
You
have.
don't know what you don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly, exactly.
So there's other people in the community
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
go through this as well. All ages? Are you?
All ages, all ages. I think the younger ones are like in the early 20s in this particular community. And the older ones are, well into their 70s, 80s, whatever. And it's not a disability. It's really,
Right.
truly just another way of not seeing an image, another way of processing information. If you talk about the beach, I can think in my head about a beach. I can know what a beach is. I can know that I like it. I can know that it sounds really good, but I can't see it or hear it in my head. Whereas many people are able to do that. Most people are able to do that.
Now let's take it in a different direction. This is really fascinating. Is there anything else as far as, gender, age, ethnicity?
Mhm.
Are there anything else that any commonalities?
I have to answer, I don't know. And the reason I say that is the research is really not, there's not a lot out there. And it's mostly being done at major universities in Germany and Australia and a few in the US. So sometime when they get enough people to have a good sample size, they may be able to say, well, it seems to affect women who are, you know, live in the Southeast or something like that. But right now, it's basically a condition, and they're exploring who has the condition and trying to get it publicized a little more so that people will self-report. And in fact, some of the quizzes and things I've taken since I learned about it have been to find out how, if I had it, right? They will give you a quiz to see if you really have it or if you just think you have it, etc. But I've never dreamt in pictures. People dream in pictures very vividly, and so I don't dream in pictures either. Some aphants do. They are able to dream, which means it's really more of an unconscious thing for them.
Yeah, I'm thinking, subconscious, or you see these tests where they hook you to electrodes and
Mhm.
your brain and they'd be able to see a frequency. Maybe we'll get to that point, but again, in other
Yeah,
countries, because it seems like we're pulling back on research here in the
yeah.
United States on a lot of things. Very progressive, though. I could see it in Switzerland, Germany. Those places are really ingrained in that. So,
Mhm.
how does that affect you day to day? When you're working, does it impact your work, or just
Well, I'm not in a visual field. Okay, I read things, I comprehend them, but if you ask me to tell you to give you the paragraph back that I just read in its form, I couldn't do that. There are some studies out there that say there's some differences in aphants between the connectivity of their frontal brain, and that's the area that will initiate imagery, and their posterior visual region. So there's like something missing in between, the spark in between. And it's atypical functioning, and they think it might be a default on the visual cortex. And I don't know the science around that, but some neuroscientists think that there is a physical link to it. But either way, there's not a lot of research and there's not a lot of diagnostics on it, because it's really, somebody had the big aha moment in 2015. So we're only 10 years into the research.
how does that affect you emotionally? And the reason why I ask that is, anytime someone has something different about them,
Mhm.
there's an emotional component to it. It's like, dang, I wish I had, or
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing out on something. Have you been able to adjust to it rather well now that you understand it a lot better?
I think it makes me very sad about the people in my life that I can't recall. I'm at an age where I've lost a lot of friends, I've lost family, and not being able to smile and think of them and have their image appear in my head is kind of sad. So that's something that bothers me. But then I've also been in situations that have been not too pretty, and to have the inability to recall them and live through that trauma again in my head is also a good thing. So it balances. I just think it's something that if we start looking at children and determining what their ability is to visualize, memorize, etc., it will give us a better way to teach people, much like they've determined how to teach people with other kinds of, and I'll call it a condition, but when you think about being in school, those are skills that you rely on, is your imagery and your ability to visually recall things. And so I wonder how many people were failing their spelling tests because they couldn't close their eyes and see that little bubble at the top of the page with all the words spelled out.
Right. Yeah, because that could have been me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
and you think about that over and over again, and then you always it becomes your normal.
right. Yeah, you don't notice anything different. And so, like I said, the only thing that makes me sad as I age and see more people not in my life anymore is not being able to conjure up, a face in my mind. That's
But
that's
look
sad.
at it. But when you look at a photograph of that person,
Yeah, I know who it is. I mean, I'm not face blind, which is another weird condition, but no, I will recognize them. But I can't have my own photograph in my head.
wow. And for you to have figured that out just by reading an article, I'm telling you, the things that you discover
Oh
are
no.
amazing.
It's amazing. You start using ChatGPT and Google, and the world's your oyster, right?
It really changes things. So,
Mhm.
where do you see yourself as a pioneer with this? You just really, you're here on the podcast, you're raising awareness. Um, are you writing any articles? You're a part of the support group? So I thank you for that. And really, maybe being a speaker.
Yeah, people need to know about it. I think it's a condition that people need to know about, much like they know about color blindness, they know about dyslexia, they know about other things that create a difference in perception.
Mhm.
I think this is another piece that needs to be looked at. And as the studies get more robust, I'm sure we'll start hearing about it. But, maybe not in my lifetime, but I hope that it's something that they start looking at more as, like, you've heard of personalized medicine, where the medicine is basically personalized to your genetics. I really feel like this almost should be personalized knowledge building or education, right? Because everybody's going to receive information, right? I wonder how many kids just couldn't grasp visuals and, flunk tests when they really were smart kids and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
you again, you never know. You're judged, you're ostracized.
Absolutely.
The teacher doesn't call on you because you're not going to get the answer.
Right.
And the teachers don't know when you've got 20, 25 kids in the
Mm-hmm.
how do you figure that out? And as a parent, you struggle. Oh, okay, my kid is, failing in school, they're not passing tests. We stayed up all night and we studied. They still didn't do it. So
Right.
these things that we can consider. There's a whole plethora of things, like
And
civilization is changing in my
absolutely. And we have to figure out what works for each individual. And
mind.
I think we have this idea that everybody should be on this norm on how they perceive information and how they bring information back to basically demonstrate that they've learned it. You know, there are probably different methodologies that you can learn things like maybe singing, spelling, the ABCs. That was a good methodology, that kind of thing. But doing things that give you a way to anchor around something that you want to be able to visually remember. Okay. Like I have a red car. Okay. I know it's red and I couldn't tell you what it looks like really. I'm the one that can't find her car in the parking lot half the time because there's a lot of red cars.
Right. That's like my mother when she was transitioning, she had lost her sense of smell and taste.
Oh,
And it was horrible. But I said, what can I do to make it easier for her? Because she would just eat so
yeah.
much food, trying to find the taste,
Mm-hmm.
to find the smell. So I said, let me make it more texturous,
Yeah, that's good.
more colorful.
Uh-huh.
Let's, make a happy face on the pancake and
Right.
think about what that maple syrup used to taste like.
Mm-hmm.
And you are missing some of the things that we take for granted.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's saddening, and I can understand why you're sad. But I'm telling you, you are not at a loss because you are a winner.
No, it's not been in any way, it hasn't done anything or held me back or any way, shape, or form. And it's I never knew that other people perceive differently. And I
Mm,
think that's the big aha is that, this is one condition out there. How many people out there don't necessarily perceive the same way you do or I do? There are a lot of people that are very intuitive. There are a lot of people that they see a scene and it's really bright, glowing, very, very much over the top in their visual imagination, and others that don't see much at all. And that's really the big difference. It's an interesting thing to find out about at my age, and I hope that the research continues. There's a questionnaire called the VVIQ, vividness of virtual imagery questionnaire, VVIQ. If you go online and hit that, you can take a test and see where you are on the scale from really incredibly complete and robust visualizations to having none at all.
right. looked at some of that and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just take it just for shit.
Mhm.
I want to see because you never know what you don't know.
Yeah,
So let's ask you some fun questions.
sure.
Okay. If you could have the opportunity to visualize and remember something outside of your parents, what would be something that you have experienced in your life that you'd like to recall?
Trip to the beach when I was in after I was in college with a boyfriend when we were stayed in a beach house. Uh, Traveling, I've gone to some great places, and unless I look at the pictures, I can't conjure them up. I've been to Australia, and I've been to Bondi Beach, and I know where it is on the map, but I can't visualize the day of walking above it for hours and looking down.
And that's odd because you lived at the beach,
I know. Yeah.
you lived here. And then I remember you, what is about three, maybe not even 3 years ago that you went to Australia.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I remember the trip. I remember I went with a friend of mine. I remember we did some nice things, but we went to galleries, beautiful galleries. I can't think of what I know we saw great paintings, but I don't know what they look like. We went to a sculpture garden, which was phenomenal, but I have pictures, fortunately, of those kinds of things that I can look back at. But you know how sometimes you're walking along and you get a memory and it just makes you smile. Um, I will have that too, but it just won't be a visual memory.
Something else that brings you great joy is your work with dogs and rescues.
Uh-huh.
You like to give a plug out for that because
I will.
you
I,
have
I will definitely do that.
since I've known you.
Yeah. I've gotten very much into to working with pet adoptions with a shelter here called Houston Pets Alive. I also work with Bark, which is the big community shelter where if you don't save them, they get euthanized. It's really hard to to see them. So I make it a point to volunteer there once a month and help people adopt dogs that aren't the puppies. Puppies go fast. Bottom line is a puppy's a lot of work. If you can get a good dog that's a year or two old and it really would be euthanized if you don't get them, that's what I try to pitch when I'm working with people that are interested in adopting a pet. I still foster. I just failed at my last one, so I have a new dog. So I foster with Doodle Dandy, which is the doodle rescue, anything that's part poodle. And I also still have ties to the Vizsla community because I have Vizslas. So I'm out and about with that. But one thing here in Texas, we're finally starting to get some legislation that's more favorable towards um, getting people for animal cruelty, not allowing you to leave your pet outside, etc. And there's an advocacy group that I've been involved with a little bit around our area that really wants to get legislation in place that is more, I guess, robust about taking people to jail when they do things that's negligence or cruelty. Because you leave a dog outside in 100+ weather, that's it, right? Or in your car. I mean, there's so many cases of that, and I think that we also don't fund our shelters very well. The reason we're euthanizing a lot of animals is not because they necessarily have conditions that need to be euthanized. There's just overpopulation.
Right.
And until the city and the county gives them money to expand or to have more animals in there, then I think it's definitely going to be a problem. One thing I have found really interesting is there's one rescue group here that I support. I don't volunteer. It's just on my list of charities that actually they take in animals, they rehab them, and then they transport them to other parts of the country.
Mm.
Florida and Texas are the worst states for strays and animal abandonment, and they take these animals in these big air-conditioned buses to Minnesota to meet people that
But we got
don't
a
even
lot
have
of
a kid. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that you had there in Texas. We got
Yeah.
a down here in Helen Woodworth. And
Yeah.
you were a big advocate of the Helen
Yeah.
Woodworth Animal
Mm-hmm.
Shelter here too.
Yeah.
And I get emotionally attached. I'll go once
No.
a month and walk them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so hard to walk away.
I know.
You
I
know,
know.
again, the dog is God spelled backwards.
I know. There's a reason for that, I'm sure.
They are heavenly. They are man and woman's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And in closing, Diane,
Sure.
um, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as somebody that cared and was helpful to other people, and that I'm not going to look for a plaque anywhere or a statue. I just would like the people that knew me to feel like they got something from me that was of value to them, and I think that's probably the most important thing. I don't have any kids, so I can't say I want my children to grow up and be perfect people, because I have none. So and the dogs are probably not gonna do much for giving me a legacy other than a messy house. But that's probably it.
Well, you have left an imprint in my heart,
I thank you for that.
and it's true. Your last interviews, people leave so many wonderful comments.
Oh, thank you. Good.
You are a great person, so I give you your flowers here and now.
Thank
Thank you so much. I am going to put
Pleasure.
all the information in the back.
Great.
I'll also put the quiz information. I'm going to run
Super.
several countries, several places,
Mhm.
to help you push to get this, because
People need to understand it. Yeah.
yeah, it's really fascinating, and you just don't. Again, how would you ever figure
Yeah.
that you didn't have the ability if you never knew that that ability actually existed?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Brains, I need you to
Hey,
go and love, like, share, and subscribe. Rewind. Take the time to look into it. It may not affect you, but I guarantee you it affects more people than we actually know. And they don't know that they don't know. So love, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much, Diane, for being here on The Edge. And thank you for being a great friend and a mentor.
so happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you too.
God bless. Bye bye.
Bye bye.